folks. Welcome to the Life Hacks Podcast, where everyone is a student of life. Sometimes we get life completely right, and sometimes we get it completely wrong. I am your host, Steve Smith. On today's episode, it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome this wonderful guest to the podcast. She is a well-established social worker, counselor, and therapist for the Department of Veterans Affairs, where she assists veterans with issues related to PTSD, drug and alcohol abuse, and military sexual trauma. She has a master's degree in social work from the West Virginia University, and her undergrad education is from West Virginia Wesleyan. She is also a well-established family woman, a wife, and a dedicated mother of 2 wonderful children. And last but not least, she has mentally and physically prepared for this show for the last few weeks and is slightly anxious and a bit more nervous than Mike Tyson in a spelling bee. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your undivided attention and a warm welcome to my very special Life Hacks guest and my good friend, Lori Everly. Welcome to the show, Lori.
Thank you. Yes, a little anxious, but that's okay.
Oh, hey, I appreciate you coming on. I know we've talked about this for the last, 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And we have a lot to talk about. And
yes, we do.
This podcast that you're hearing today, folks, is going to connect to the one previous to this with my best friend, Greg. So a lot of the things we're going to talk about are going to connect. And I'll tell you why. Lori and I graduated high school together, and we've known each other for a long time. Me and my buddy Greg have known each other for like 40 years. So we all went to high school together. Later on, you're going to learn how Lori kind of connects a little deeper with us than most of our high school friends. But we'll save that bit for a little bit later. So I'm going to ask you a little question right now. Okay. A little bit about this show. I know you've heard a couple episodes of this, but what we do is I start the show with a little icebreaker. We shoot the crap for a little bit. I start in with some questions, some random questions. Usually I cover history with us or my guests and then get into some more serious topics. But I'm going to start this show off with a very simple question. How in the heck do we know each other?
Well, it was a bad day back in August of 91. No, from high school. We went to different middle schools, but then, we came together in Ridgey County High School in 1991, and you were a football player, I was a cheerleader, so our circles kind of crossed, and you started dating one of my good friends, and that's kind of how we know each other.
That's history. Yeah, we've known each other since we were like freshmen in high school, right? So, and where we grew up, our county is a small county in West Virginia.
Very small. But
there was 3 middle schools that came together and made our high school. So we were kind of rivals in middle school, and our football teams played each other and all that. But there's a lot of good memories there. And that's how we've connected, and we've been friends ever since through thick and thin, and definitely, post high school, and we're still friends today. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. It doesn't seem like was that long ago that we graduated, but I won't even say how long ago.
It's been a while.
It's been a couple of years.
All right, Lori, I've got a bunch of questions here for you, and we're going to just start with number 1.
Okay.
Who was the most influential person in your life as a teenager?
Wow, that's not a big question.
Or it doesn't really have to be a person, or maybe a group of people or something like that.
Well, probably not just one. Probably have a couple of different people, and probably for different reasons. Definitely one is one of our high school teachers. This is Cheryl Jameson.
Oh, yeah.
Love her.
Very
Absolute
nice.
Favorite teacher ever. But she has, I don't remember in one of our classes, she had us, I don't know if she assigned us the poem that we needed to dissect, tear it apart, learn it, understand it. And I don't know if she assigned it or I picked it, but it was one of those random things, in my memory at least. The Road Less Traveled by Robert Frost.
Nice.
It's, 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. That is like my mantra for life, and that is what I try to live my life. And it didn't start out like that, with us. And we're going to talk about, Chuck later. But I feel like going through the trauma that we did then put us on a different path. We were not taking the normal high school path. Our path was paved. And not only by Chuck's death, we had lost a lot of friends.
Yes, we did.
And even, significant community figures in our life with tragedy. And I always have felt like that started my path down, a different road. And then, different things have happened in my life, and my husband joined the military, and the military path is not the one, that's the normal path either.
No, it's not.
And, and I'm very grateful for that. And, it wasn't until probably when my husband joined the military that I'm like, man, look, all these things that just keep happening. We are always taking that more challenging road, not just the easy one.
Right.
And I'm like, that's okay. Instead of that kind of holding me back where it felt like it did for years, I really tried to use that in choices that we continue to face moving forward of trying to pick that path that's not going to necessarily be the easiest. Let's go on an adventure.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
Awesome.
So she would definitely be one. Another one that was big as I've thought a lot as we've talked about Chuck, and you kind of gave me some themes that we're going to talk about. So I kind of just had some things running through my mind. Another one would be Cookie Law.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And she was my youth group leader in church and Sunday school and all of that. And honestly, my faith is the only thing that got me through.
Amen. Yeah, definitely.
My faith is the only thing that got me through losing the losses that we did.
Yes, I agree.
At the age we were. We were just too young to deal with those losses. And honestly, there were times I didn't want to go on.
Oh, yeah. I know you're feeling.
Yeah, there was times that I really thought, like, this is too much.
Yep.
This is too much for a 16-year-old to go through, and I don't want to go on anymore.
Yes, I know.
But it was that solid foundation of faith and belief in that he's someplace better, and that one day I'll get to see him again.
Right.
If I'm just patient.
Yes.
And I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So, there's times that I think that faith is the only reason I'm even sitting here today.
Those are two great role models, those two ladies right there.
I have one more. My mom. My mom is my rock.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I would do without my mom.
Definitely.
And I've told people this a lot over the years. My mom was brilliant in parenting. She was a genius. I didn't realize how smart she was until I was into my later 20s. I didn't realize that I had an option of going to college or not going to college.
You're kidding.
No, didn't realize. Because here's how she would do things. I said, she would say, Lori, what college would you like to go to? I don't know. What college would I like to go to? Well, let's go on some college visits and check out some campuses, decide what college you would like to go to. That sounds like fun. Okay. And then she would be like, what degree do you want to get? I don't know. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And she's like, well, let's look at different things. And it wasn't until later, I'm like, you're a genius. I had no idea that I had a choice. And you just guided me into, going to college. And all the time I thought I was making all these decisions all by myself.
You're kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah, but
Secret.
Exactly. And I thought, well, that's really wonderful. And, how she did that and how she was able to help guide my life and to getting me to college and, eventually through my master's degree. So I'm very grateful. There's actually a lot of other people that were really influential, but those, as far as quick thinking, those are by far the three most influential women in my life.
I mean, that's a tough question, obviously.
We
could sit here for 2 hours and talk about somebody different every 2 minutes. And I've got a lot of those people in my life too.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of mine are, family. My family's humongous, as you know, and I'm a family-based guy. So mom, dads, uncles, aunts, grandmas, grandpas, that's pretty much my group of influential people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got some role models in sports and all the teams I was in growing up, like, Coach Spangler and, and all the coaches in high school. They all have a special spot, a special role in my life. And I can't really say one stuck out more than the other. It's just, we've been blessed being around, amazing people.
Yes.
And, we're from the same area. So it's been quite the environment growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're blessed for that.
Yeah.
I have some more questions. I
Okay.
got another one here for you. I want to know
geez.
the answer to this. All right.
Oh, no.
How would you describe yourself to a person that does not know you?
Well, for the most part, try to be very upbeat. Most times anybody ever sees me, I have a smile on my face. I'm always trying to be the glass, half full, not empty type of person. I love adventure. I love traveling. I love sports. I love sports.
Nice.
I think you know that.
Oh, yeah.
I've always been, I'm a baseball fan. I love baseball, so I just, I love the outdoors. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Nice. Me too.
At 40, I jumped out of the airplane for the first time.
I still haven't done that.
A video of it.
Oh, no, I'm jealous.
Yeah. We'll go do it again. I would love to. But I just, I try to live life to the fullest. I don't want to ever, I don't ever look back to things I didn't get to do. No regrets.
Yeah.
I think we learned very young that life is short.
Sure is.
And tomorrow is not guaranteed.
No.
So I guess, for me, that's just me. I've just tried to live life to the fullest.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. There's something about being able to just put your mind to something and don't worry about, I don't want to do that because of this reason. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to make a stupid decision,
Right.
but living in regret about something that like you said, being an adrenaline junkie, I am too. And I just love to just, almost test the limits of something and be on the edge and be like, is this going to go right or is this going to go wrong? I don't know. But I love that kind of stuff. I've always been that way, whether it's sports or the military stuff. When I went into the military, the recruiter's like, hey, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to do whatever it is that is super fun, dangerous and all that kind of thing. Because
that's not a smart thing to say to a recruiter.
That's what I said. But a quick history of how I got into the Marine Corps. I went to college to play football, and that was a bad decision because my mind wasn't right. My financial mindset was just a disaster, and I was like, I'm done. My entire life before I went into the military, I had no thoughts whatsoever about joining the military. Nothing against military, but I thought I was going to be a college football player, be a pro football player, blah, blah, blah. And that's just the biggest bunch of bullshit in the world. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But, when you come up from a small town and you have a little bit of talent, everybody's like, hey, you're going to be the next thing. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So when I tried doing that, I was like, this ain't happening.
Yeah.
So that's how I went into the service. I'm like, dude, I want to do the coolest thing, the most dangerous thing, and I got to leave in 2 weeks. He's like, well, first, you got to pass your ASVAB. I'm like, what's that?
I can do that.
Yeah,
no
anyway, look, here we are. We're sitting here talking to you. That kind of happened real quick, but
that's funny.
That's how my adrenaline junkie thing goes sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I got another question here for you. I ask all my guests this question, and it's just because I think we all need to have a routine in our life.
Yeah.
I know I work so much better when I have a routine about what I'm doing every day or every week. So here you go. What does your everyday routine consist of?
My everyday routine is, it looks very different right now, post-COVID than pre-COVID.
Yeah.
But pretty much get up, get ready for work. And it had been always getting my boys ready. And I was the one that usually would get them to my mom and my mom would get them to school. Right now, Dan's working from home, so he's doing that. So it's just going to work. I've reported to work through all of this and,
you're essential.
I am essential. Yes. So I've reported to my office, to continue to do the work that I do through all of this. And then the evenings, my calendar is like a highlighted, crazy mess of, I don't have a social life anymore.
Me neither.
Life now revolves around my boys' schedule and we're starting to get it back a little bit into that normalcy of sports opening back up and things. So they're playing baseball and they're playing soccer. So it's managing where we need to be each day of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what my schedule looks like. I always try to have plans to be somewhat flexible and, be able to make adjustments on the fly. But
Sure.
I am a I am a type A too. I like to have
I know you are.
two, because you are too. But I like to have things kind of in order and planned out. So, I've had friends that are like, I need to get on your schedule in like 2 to 3 months from now because I know you're already booked up. And I'm like, that's just how we are. I mean,
right.
Dan's my husband, Dan, is on the go type of person too.
Yeah.
So maybe worse than me. So, I mean, we're always, day trip here, planning this. We're going to go do this. We're going to go here. We went to Topgolf in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. That's what my 6-year-old wanted to do for his birthday.
What?
So we went to Topgolf.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he really wanted to do that. So it's like, okay, let's go.
Absolutely. I've never been to one of those yet.
Oh, you'd love it.
I know.
Yeah, it was fun. So it's just, I mean, in one way it's very structured, and then in the same sense, every day, it's, looks different because of something with the kids.
Yeah. We're both parents, and life right now is completely out of whack.
Right.
But yeah, it's awesome. I mean, without a routine, without a schedule.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, I know I would be a freaking bomb.
No.
I'd be just so, what is going on?
Yeah.
Because I can't do that. I got to have focus. I got to have a routine. I got to know what I'm doing at 5 o'clock in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. And I've seen that to be harder for my husband during this time as far as COVID, because he's 100%, he had always been 100% going into his office. Now he's 100% telework, and so him trying to figure out that balance of, getting his work done and, getting the kids and trying to be a homeschool dad.
Oh,
God bless him.
That's crazy.
I'm like, he's got the harder job right now. I'm going to my office and just doing my normal, he's the one trying to adjust to all these changes.
Oh, I know. This whole homeschooling thing is just, we've been blessed. My wife has been working from home.
Yeah.
But also teaching from home, when my daughter needs help. And oh my gosh, this has been one crazy year. Of course,
yes,
it has for everybody in the world.
Yeah, we're all on the same boat
but
together.
Oh my gosh.
But,
I mean, who would have ever thought something like this would ever happen?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Completely. I mean, it's like, what the heck is going on?
Right, exactly.
All right, let's move on to the next question.
Okay.
What is something about you that might surprise others if they knew?
Well, actually, I'm quite the introvert.
What?
I know.
You're lying.
No, I am. I was a cheerleader in high school. I was a cheerleader in college.
I'm calling bullshit
No,
here.
ask Dan. But I mean, for the most part, I have a small group of people. But when there's a lot of people around, you'll find me in a corner somewhere by myself a lot of times. I get really overwhelmed by, a lot of people. So, most people, call,
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not expect that.
Very much introvert.
Whoa, no way.
Yes.
No way.
Well, the other thing I would have said, you also said in my intro that I am a person that's in my head a lot. I am an overthinker to the 10th degree that poor Steve has learned over the last, I'm like, he'll get random messages from me. I can't do this. No. What?
I think there's value to this, so we'll get into this later, and we've talked about this. But I had no clue that you're that way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to believe this either, probably, but I'm the exact same way.
Could see that.
Jen and I both, Jen is my wife's name, we are exactly the same way. The older we get, the more people we don't want to be around.
Me too.
I don't mean that in a mean way, but we love that introvert style of life.
Yeah. I could stay on my 62 acres and never leave.
Absolutely.
Like ever.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Well, you have an awesome farm though too. So.
I do have an awesome farm. Well, we'll have to clue everybody in. I bought 62 acres that used to be Steve's family farm back in the day. So he grew up on the land that I now live and hunting and all of that type of thing. So I do have an awesome piece of land.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you ever want to sell it, let me know.
No. We're just about to get it where we want it.
Yeah, I know that. Oh my gosh, you sent me a picture of your garage. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh. You guys need to charge people to come play indoor golf and basketball. And you got a swimming pool now? Gee whiz.
And I don't like people, so. No, I do like people. I just have a small, I like smaller, intimate groups of people opposed to when there's bigger crowds.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do, kind of what we went through growing up.
Yes.
And we'll talk about this here in a little bit, but that, traumatic event that we went through actually and I didn't know this for a long time. It actually changed me completely. Because I used to be very, I loved being around people all the time. Just, I was friends with everybody. And and it naturally made me kind of put blockers up, and just
hold people at arm's length.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know that for a long time that, I'm not 100% sure that's what caused it, but that was part of why I changed, later on. And
yeah, we can get into that later, but it is absolutely why we are the way we are.
I'm definitely more introvert than I've ever been. And I like it. It's a cool life.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into some high school stuff since that's all we're doing is talking about it. So. All right.
No one's going to want to listen to this.
I want to hear this answer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What is your most embarrassing and or your funniest moment while you were in high school?
Well, that's really easy.
Is it?
It is.
Uh-oh. You got that look on your face.
Am I already turning red?
Yes.
Probably. So senior year, basketball season, Valentine's Day.
Oh boy, this is getting good.
Very specific. So, and we won't name the other party, but the guy I was dating at the time, there's things that you do and you just don't think it through. But I bought him boxers as part of his Valentine's present. And they had big red, bright red hearts on all over them. And things else you don't think about is this a home game or an away game as far as what uniform you're going to wear? Yeah, you know where this...
I'm getting a feeling.
So it was white. Home game. And he wore the boxers. And it was fine until he lined up on the foul line on our home side, right in front of the student section, right in front of all the cheerleaders. And you know how you guys do, like you take your hands on your legs and you bend over and the shorts become extremely tight. And it was like the entire air got sucked out of the gymnasium, and it was horrible. Everyone started laughing and they're like, Lori. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because they knew it was me, even though it was so innocent and so silly, but I was mortified. Our cheerleading coach was not happy and did not find it to be comical at all. I remember her yelling at me. And
she was kind of mean though.
I loved her though. Yeah, it was one of those things. Yeah, she was tough. But yes, and I mean, oh my gosh, I know that I turned a million shades of red and was mortified. And the bad thing was he didn't even realize what was going on.
But he did.
I mean, eventually, I'm sure he figured it out. But you're in the middle of a game. You're just playing a basketball game.
Yeah.
And I felt bad, and I was so embarrassed, and because...
So obviously, I was on the field or on the floor the whole this time this was going on. I didn't know this was going on.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. I don't know if he'll remember this or not. And
no.
Yeah. Yes, it was. I was extremely embarrassed.
I bet.
And I felt so bad for him. But yeah, it was so innocent at the time too. It's just,
right.
And I think that you think anybody else in the world is going to see, and then everybody in Ritchie County does.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of that. I mean, we grew up in a county that
yes.
You say something, everybody knows it.
Everybody.
Well, I wouldn't change it though. I mean, that sculpted our life. I mean, so I mean, it is what it is.
It's again, that road less traveled. If we hadn't have gone through that, we wouldn't be who we are now. So,
well, that's going to lead us in to a big part of why you're here today.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier in the podcast, Lori and I are connected pretty tightly through this gentleman we're getting ready to talk to. And the podcast, like I said, that airs before this one kind of connects with this podcast when we start talking about this gentleman. The next question is simple, and I just want you to tell me your answer. Tell me about your history with Chuck Schofield. And you can, elaborate as much as you want. You can keep it however you want.
Yeah, it's okay.
And we'll get into the post incident stuff too here in a little bit.
So, I mean, honestly, I met Chuck the same time I met you, because he had went to, Pennsboro Middle School. And so we didn't go to middle school together. So freshman year, high school is when I met him, and we'd had classes together and, knew each other, and we're always very friendly, football player, cheerleader, same thing. And, but we never really spent a ton of time, together.
Yeah.
And then, It would have been August of 93. And I had actually I just broke up with the guy that I was dating with for about, no, he inaugurated like 6 or 7 months. And
Yeah.
well, what made Chuck start pursuing me as I was dating Chuck was as an outfit. And it's, we were talking before this started about things that pop out, and that's a thing that I don't even know why it just popped in my head but I had you guys had a football scrimmage up at the old high school and where we were going to school, and I came up and he started pursuing me from that moment on.
Yeah.
And so he started calling me, and we just started, really just calling and talking and him talking at school just a lot more. And he kept asking me out, and I was very adamant that I was not going to date him. I just wasn't, I just wasn't ready. I just, we just newly single, and I'm like, I had no desire, but he was pretty persistent. And, we hit it off, and we started spending, a ton of time together. And then, in August, September, just, a ton of time together. And through September, we pretty much almost every day we were together. He'd come to my house almost every day after school. And, so we dated. So, as we know, Chuck, died playing football. And so, he and I's relationship had really just got started. We were just at the beginning of our journey of what might have been. And all of that got cut very short. But, we had a lot of fun in the 2 months, not even quite 2 months, from with the dates and everything that we dated. But it was I think it was, from, reading things that he had written in his college English journal and things and of that. He felt a deeper connection with me as I did with him, as far as it being more of a more mature relationship as far as high school goes. Mm-hmm. So we had a really deep connection. Yeah,
I definitely see that. Just like Lori said, Chuck Schofield died playing football. He was dating Lori at the time this all happened. It was Chuck's senior year, Lori and I's junior year. So and that takes us to the next question. September 24th, 1993 was a Friday night, Work County High School against Ritchie County High School at Work County. I was on the football team. We played 3 quarters of football, relatively smash mouth game. I mean, we always played hard against Work County, big heavy hits. It was just a good rivalry we always had with Work County. And a lot of our teams back then, it was just hard-nosed football everywhere we played. And Chuck was a hard-nosed player. Every time he hit somebody, it was as hard as he could.
Yeah.
And
he loved football.
He did. And that's just how we all played back then. It was just hard, football players, and we played on the edge all the time.
Yeah.
So that gets us in the next question. Let's just talk about September 24th, 1993. What do you remember? I mean, give me your timeline. I mean, as much detail as you want. I mean, from the time, the day started and then throughout the event.
Yeah. All of that is still so very clear. So much of it, like we were talking earlier, that there's some details that are a little foggy, but there's other things that's so clear. And, I remember he came to my house after school, and so did a few other friends, and my mom cooked for everybody, and we were playing flag football in my backyard and stuff.
Really?
Nice. My mom cooked for there'd be tons of people that came to my house before every game. My mom would cook for everybody. Yeah. And so he came over, and it just was normal, and we were having a lot of fun, and no idea that within a few short hours, our lives were going to completely be torn upside down. But I don't know if you remember, Chuck had been sick that week.
I do remember that. Yep.
So the ride to the football game, I was sitting in front of him on the bus, and at times I can literally still feel he had his arm like over the seat, around my neck, and he was listening to music.
Yeah.
Confederate Railroad. Like, I can remember this so clearly. Yeah. And I can remember that. And, I remember him getting off the bus and kissing me on my forehead, as he walked off the bus. And, that's the last I really was able to talk to him. 'Cause I was a cheerleader. And so I was on the sidelines and watching the game. And, even so much of the game, I remember just a couple of, I can't remember exactly how many plays, but a few plays before he went down, he hit a guy into me that gave me the biggest bruise that I've ever had in my entire life because the guy's helmet went into my leg and I got pinned against the fence.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard hit that I took on the sideline. And, I remember him going down. And, I said this to you the other day, but, Chuck and you both wore those black tights under your football pants. And I remember when looking across the field, because he was on the opposite side of the field as I was, and seeing the black tights and not knowing if it was you or if it was Chuck.
Yeah.
And I remember scanning the field, looking for 10 or 35.
Yeah.
And I obviously saw, you standing, on the field and realized then that, that's when I realized it was Chuck laying there. And either way would have been horrible. But it was just one of those, like that frantic looking is still so clear in my mind of just not knowing and remembering the silence of, the stadium. And I think we all knew that it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
Chuck had gotten hurt the year before and had been hospitalized for a head injury, but he had been cleared to play.
Sure, yeah.
Special helmet, all this stuff, that it was good for him to go and play this year. But I think we all just knew like, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is really bad. And, I remember, them trying to get him up off the field. I mean, it's just all of those details.
Yes, I know.
And as you go to talk about it, I can just see it.
I can too.
See it.
And, we've talked about this a lot off the mic, but, I want to do this kind of discussion with people about things. And this is kind of the things that bother a lot of us from the county. And, it dramatically changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
Some people knew it right away, but most people did not know it and probably still don't know it, how bad or how much it has changed their lives. And I'm just now, I'm 43 years old. I'm just now in the last couple of years starting to realize how much it changed my life. And I don't even know if I really understand yet how much it has, if that makes sense.
I do.
But I am understanding a lot more in the last few years, and especially the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's just been, I've had so many people contact me. I put a video out on YouTube playing a guitar, and this and that, but I've had tons of people contact me about it.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this issue more in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 27 years.
I know.
And, what happened that night in Ware County was just unbelievable. I still don't have the vocabulary to properly talk about it, to tell people about it. It's just unbelievable what happened and what went down. And, like my podcast previous to this one, my buddy Greg, we talked about, living the life now in memory of, because we all know how good of a dude he was.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't want us, soaping and, being all sad about it. He'd be like, hey, you bunch of, you know what?
Right.
Pull your head out of your rear end and live your life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like Greg said, that's helped him more than anything because we all knew him really well. And that's exactly what he would want. And as hard as that is to say, because, he's gone, but that's exactly how he would want us to live.
Yeah.
But it's still, it has affected the entire community, and it's been one unbelievable situation.
And that's where I talk to people all the time about, trauma affects us, and this is not something that you just get over.
Right.
You don't just get over something like we went through. It's learning to cope with it and deal with it in a healthier way.
Right.
And, it's kind of, I think it's, as we've talked a lot, over the last, even from when I did the memorial a few years ago for Chuck at one of the high school football games, that I did things completely different than a lot of people.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of pushing things away, I, gravitated it. from I visited his grave every single Sunday from the time he was buried until I went to college. And there was very rarely ever a week that I missed. And it was just, why? I don't know. But it's just, that's where I got where I got regrounded. I'd go there and try to clear my head and try to figure out what on earth am I going to do with my life and what is this going to look like and where am I going to go from here? And it was the only place in the world it felt like I could think and make everything in my head stop.
Yeah.
So it's just, when you had told me, that you had not gone for so many years until recently, I was like, it just like, oh, wow. Like, cause I was just such the polar opposite of that.
Yeah. Grieving has no manual.
Nope.
There is no proper way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it.
Right.
And for a long time, like she just mentioned it, I just now went back to the grave a few months ago. And it's been 27 years. And I may have went one time or two right after he was buried, but all that was such a shock. I don't even remember it. If I even did, and that would be the only time I would ever, maybe had ever went. But the first time I went back was a few months ago. And a lot of that, like we've talked off mic, a year ago, a kid from a local county here died as well playing football from Roane County. The Miller kid did.
Yeah.
And Alex Miller, I think was his first name, right? So. Okay. He died playing football. And me and my buddy Greg in the last podcast talked about this a little bit, but I thought I had Chuck and the entire history of what went down stuffed away in my soul.
Yeah. Nice little box, neatly put away.
And the key was out and the key was over there. And I had total control of it, right? And this kid died from Roane County. And it sucks for that, that entire community. And I started reading all these Facebook posts, and I even got a hold of some, people from that area and offered to come in and talk to people if they wanted to talk, or if they just wanted to just hang out. I offered my presence, not saying I'm anybody, but I went through that.
Right. We had a lived experience.
Yes. So I had experience there. I just offered the help. And anyway, I started reading all those posts and messages, and it just blew me in two. I mean, I completely just lost it. Lost everything I had control of was gone. That's that key that I was telling you about. Somebody stole it, threw it away, and that thing that it was locked, it blew up.
It was a tsunami of emotions that come flooding back.
I couldn't find that key. It just blew me away for the last year. I haven't told anybody this, and maybe occasionally here and there, but me and Greg talked about it some. I think we did too, back then when it happened. But that thing just destroyed me. Then I realized all that stuff that was compartmentalized inside of me, I had not dealt with it.
Yeah.
I had not looked it in the face and said, what's going on?
Right. A lot of unresolved grief.
Yeah. And I didn't know it. I thought it was gone. I thought I lived through it, and it was over. It was history. Big no. Yeah. And what it taught me was, be open to people, be willing to help somebody out, just be an ear for somebody. Or, I don't even know what it taught me, to be honest, but that's where I'm at right now. I'm starting to talk about this stuff, and, I'm just, I think I got to, that's what I'm being called to do. And I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing, but and that's the biggest reason why I started this podcast, I'll be honest with you, is to talk about life with people. And that's the whole purpose of the podcast, is just talk about life. We're all students, teachers. We all suck at it. Some of us are good at it, but it's just to talk about it. And right now, this is a thing that's been up my freaking butt for the last year. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's good that you guys are talking about it, because I think we all, especially at that time, none of us were dealing with it.
No.
None of us. I mean, and we did. The people around us, the adults in our lives, they tried. I know they did. I know they sent, they sent school counselors.
Yeah, definitely.
Counselors to school to talk to us. I know, the local funeral home even paid for me to go to counseling for 3 sessions.
Yeah.
Which was a disaster.
Yeah.
It's amazing I got into social work after that, because he kept asking me, are you seeing him? Are you having hallucinations of him? Are you hearing his voice? And I'm like, no, I know he's dead. I just don't know how to deal with everything I'm feeling. And
Right.
I'm like, this guy is a complete quack. Like, what on earth am I doing here? And I mean, that was my first counseling experience. And
Yeah.
I mean, truly, it's amazing that, but yeah, he kept asking me that. And I'm like, no, that's not my issue at all.
Right.
I don't know what to think. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what to do. I'm lost.
I tell you, the biggest thing that hurt me back then, obviously losing a friend and that sucked. But to watch it all happen and to watch it affect everybody around me, that was such a, that hurt me more than anything, seeing everybody's reactions and everybody grieve differently and everybody suffer differently. And I had no clue how to, to show empathy to somebody the right way at a certain time. I had no clue about that stuff growing up. Yeah, I mean, I knew about caring and being a good person and all that, but I just didn't, that was so dramatic.
Right.
But,
we were not equipped to how to reach out to each other. I know friendships changed and
Definitely,
we all
definitely.
just, I think we kind of, when you're talking about the introvert, I know that's how that affected me.
Yep.
Just friendships, feeling very judged. I know for me, because Chuck and I hadn't dated for very long. And, so, I got comments that, you should be over it by now because, you guys were barely even dating. I'm like, okay, but regardless if I was dating him or not, he was still a friend of mine.
Absolutely.
And it's the first time I've ever seen a dead body like that.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to, after he passed, and I heard that there was going to be a closed casket to go in and say my final goodbyes to him, which I'm so grateful that I got to do. But in the same sense, as a 16-year-old, that's some pretty heavy shit.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no other, sorry for my language, but there's just no other way to say it.
No.
It was very heavy for a 16-year-old to go through.
Absolutely.
And, everything about that absolutely changed me and changed my life.
I agree 100%. I mean, there has been people that has experienced things at young ages. And like I said, it's just, our event is so just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just, so many people saw it happen. So many people were there. It's just, like you said, it just changed so much stuff in everybody.
And in a way bonded us, I think I said this to you the other day when we were chatting, it kind of reminds me of a lot of the combat vets I deal with and work with. That combat, and that trauma of combat brings them together and makes them close. And, ours is not combat trauma, but it was still trauma.
It is, yeah.
And that trauma, binded us all together.
It did, dramatically.
Yeah.
That leads me into our next topic, actually. How do you think the events and the passing of Chuck's life impacted you today with your job and how you deal, how you assist with your counseling with the veterans group? Because, like I said in the podcast, Lori is a counselor, a therapist for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and she handles and deals with, combat trauma, PTSD, and, everything related to the military and the therapy side. How do you think Chuck's event has helped you in your career?
Everything is just one event after another that has led me to where I am. But, first, it was definitely when we were at the hospital, and I don't know how much you would have worked with her or not, but there was a social worker at Camden Clark, and she was amazing. She was so good to come and pull me aside and chat with me. She's the one, I don't know if you remember the Saturday after he got injured and there was hundreds of people at the hospital. Do you remember them bringing out trays of food, of sandwiches that they made for us? She arranged that to take care of us. It was just that social worker, just looking what can I do to try to bring some peace to this this entire community that's, suffering right now.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of little things that she did. After Chuck died, she came to Ritchie County High School, which she didn't have to do. This was not in her job description in whatsoever. But she came to the high school a couple of different times to talk with me.
Nice.
And I can, at the time I thought, well, that's really cool of her to take time out of her day to come talk to me.
For sure.
That's a big deal. But even then, like you were talking about holding people at arm's length, I have had no desire to get into counseling and social work. None whatsoever. As different times and your senior year and you start doing some of those like those tests, and they would say what you're every single time. It was social work, counseling. It was all in the social services field. It always popped up for me. Yes. And
you know what mine said?
What?
You're a dummy.
You are not a dummy. You can play the role, but you're not. I know better. But and it's funny when we had our class reunion, and I had people out at my house, a few years ago, and I was going through yearbooks and reading people.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody, they'd be like, thanks for listening. You're such a great listener. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was really like maybe destined to do this way before that I wanted to do this. And so I went to Wesleyan, and I was an accounting major. Did you know that?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of told me that a long time ago.
So I was an accounting major. And like you were talking about, we had a lot of unresolved grief and trauma. And so like you, first semester, freshman year, did not go well for me. I was 0.5 away from losing all my academic scholarship at Wesleyan. I don't know if you knew that or not. But yeah, I had a hard time. And unfortunately, a lot of social anxieties and stress got taken out with alcohol. And it just, I just didn't know how to manage. And during that time, I was taking a psychology class, and I loved it. And so I switched majors and decided to go into psychology. I didn't know, what I was going to do. I definitely kept thinking like I was going to hold people kind of back, and I really didn't want to get close to people. I just didn't want to expose myself that way, but it felt like the universe kept pushing me in that direction. So I decided to get my degree I actually got a double major, psychology and sociology, and then went on and got my master's degree in social work. I went straight through school, and I'd met Dan, my husband, when we were in college, and we got married 1 month after 9/11. So talking about trauma and how things happen, we were literally in flight on our honeymoon when we started bombing in Afghanistan.
Dang.
We landed in Miami, and it was like crazy. It looked like a war zone. We're like, what's going on? I called my mom, and she's like, I don't know. We're cleaning up from the wedding. I'm like, turn on the TV, because this was before smartphones, and I can just Google stuff. And she was like, oh, we started bombing in Afghanistan. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. So, 9/11 had a huge impact, especially on my husband. And, on our 1-year anniversary, he was just the trauma of that. He was like, I feel like I need to do something different. I had my master's degree. We had bought a house. He had his college degree. And he's like, I'm going to enlist in the Army. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I was doing drug and alcohol counseling. We were living out in Philly. It's still most of the Chuck stuff and anything related with trauma, I did not want to delve into that world.
Away, didn't you?
Yes. It was, like you said, it was in a nice little box. It was tucked away under a lock and key. And I just, I just wasn't, that's not a part of my life that was open to other people.
Yeah.
And so then, my husband decided to join the military and enlisted, and we ended up getting stationed in Germany. And I didn't have a lot of options for jobs, because just being on a military base. Sure. And so I started working for the Department of Army. And so I was doing a lot of different things. I had a lot of different variety of jobs, but a lot of the things that we were doing is doing a lot of reintegration work and working with families who were coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan. And then when the war in Iraq started too, and working with those families. And it started realizing, it's like these light bulbs started going off, like, oh my gosh, like I understand the trauma in a completely different way that I never really, realized. And so, I tell some of my vets, I'm like, I had no idea, like how events lead up to where you are. Mm-hmm. But, Chuck's death, 9/11, these things put me in a place that, set me up and pushed me in a way that this is where I was going to be. And, when I talk to my combat vets about re-experiencing and, just trauma and getting over it. I hear that all the time from a lot of the vets I work with. When am I going to get over this? And I'm like, you're not. Never. You're not. Because I look at it myself. I'm never going to be over.
Oh yeah.
What happened and the loss that we had with Chuck. I learned to cope with it more effectively. Yeah. I learned to deal with it.
Right.
And I try to I don't tell my veterans about, those personal things. They don't need to know those personal things about me, but I'm able to, I think it allows me to connect with them in a much different and more meaningful way because of the trauma that I lived through. And, being able to pull from those experiences and say, hey, the bad news is you're going to continue to live with this, but, it doesn't have to destroy your life. You can find meaningful ways to, take this piece of your past and move forward.
Right.
Like you're doing now. You're, doing this with the podcast. And believe me, I know there's a lot of people out there, because I've gotten a lot of messages too through the years. When I did the memorial a few years ago, the 20th anniversary of Chuck's death, like I said, 7 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
But
it is, isn't it?
Yeah. That I did that. And, I had t-shirts made and a bunch of different things. The people, the outpouring of people that I didn't talk to in high school.
I know, isn't that crazy?
And they're like, thank you. You have no idea how much I needed this. And I'm like, wow, like this, here I am, working with these combat vets and stuff, but my gosh, my own community is hurting so bad from something and I need to do something to help.
Yes.
And so for me, that's why I did the memorial on the 20th anniversary of his death, because there was just a lot of people hurting and I wanted to bring them together.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, just taking that little bit, that little step to make a difference, whether it's a podcast, whether it's setting up a memorial fund or, the memorial that you did, it's unbelievable what can happen.
Yeah.
Whether you might touch one person, but it might be 10, it might be 100, it might be 1,000. Like I said, I've never been a guy to talk about stuff like this, but I don't know why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
This might last for 2 months and it's over with, but mission accomplished. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I always say that when I'm working with vets and things like that, if I'm able to make a difference in one veteran's life, then that's amazing. I never thought I'd come out, be working, with veterans. That wasn't my goal when I got out. But, again, just that road less traveled. And, it just led me to working with them. And I always tell people, I didn't wear the uniform. I don't know the military like the military, but I had a opportunity to work with the military, be a military spouse, be a spouse of a National Guardsman, because then Dan went into the National Guard and, living through a deployment and all of those things. I thought I was just being a good wife, supporting him. And, and in turn, it just took me down another path. And for me, it's how I see I can serve my country.
Absolutely.
I didn't serve wearing the uniform, but I can serve by trying to help those.
That's awesome. That's motivating. I like that.
Thanks.
That's a good point.
But it is. It's just taking that trauma and trying to do something, healthier and positive with it. And so I do. And I do try to, I talked about Chuck a lot, to people, especially, since moving back to Ritchie County after Dan separated from the military. And, and I, that was a big thing that when we did the memorial, I wanted to talk to the football team.
Yeah.
It was really important to me.
That was awesome.
That they, that I talked to those young men that, when they took that field of what that really meant.
Yeah.
And it's just not a name on the field. There was one time I was coming back from college and my roommate was, dropped me off there and she had another friend with her. And he made a comment, why do people name fields after somebody? He was like, no one ever knows who that is. And she went, oh my gosh. And looked, And I was like, I was dating him. And he was like, oh, geez, I am so sorry. I'm like, well, let me tell you about him,
Yeah, you think about that. I get it because they're not attached whatsoever. So it really is kind of just like, what's that mean?
Yeah, who is that?
I mean, I understand.
And that's why to me, I'm glad you're doing this and why, I agreed to come on this completely out of my comfort zone, by the way.
You didn't want to do it.
But I want, people to remember Chuck. I want people to know who Chuck was and that there's people out here that are still hurting and that are still learning to deal with it and cope with it in a healthier way, because we can all, it affected all of us. And like you have seen, it has absolutely affected so many. And we can do better. We can do better as far as just talking about him and talking about our pain and how we've not dealt with it, and to be better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole goal. I mean, like I said about this show, that's my whole goal, was to live life better, to be better at life, and learn.
Yeah.
Like you're teaching me something today, don't know if you know that or not, but you are. You're teaching me something today. And that's what life is.
Yeah.
You're always going to learn every day if you want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You need to want to learn, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you become better. You want to learn every day. You want to teach every day. You want to be a leader in life every day, every chance you get. Be a leader. Teach somebody something that you know, even if it's something very small. Teach them. We need to do that, whether it's, locally, regionally, nationally, especially. Come on. I mean, come on, America. The election's coming around and damn, I am sick of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's, beside the point.
Yeah. But it's just amazing to me, like how trauma, after all these years, as we're talking about details, and how much of that is so completely crystal clear in our minds of things that had happened. And I tell people all the time, trauma records differently in your brain.
So much.
And you don't forget it. And I'll use this example for a lot of my spouses that I work with of combat vets of, where were you when 9/11 happened? And people would be like, oh my gosh, I was da-da-da-da. Where were you? Where were you, Steve? Where were you when 9/11 happened?
I was sleeping. I worked midnights the night before, and my wife called me and she's like, hey, turn on the TV. I'm like, I got to work tonight.
Yeah, why are you calling me?
Why are you calling me? I just got to bed.
Yeah.
As soon as I turn the TV on, I'm like, damn.
Right.
And, I was freshly out of the military. I'd been out almost 11 months, almost. Yeah. And here I am thinking, here we go.
I'm getting called back.
And I got sent a packet in the mail to update all my stuff. And that's the last I heard. But yeah, that's what I was doing. I was sleeping and 9/11 happened. Yeah.
But I'm sure that you can, if you expound upon that, when you woke up and you can probably remember so many different things because, I can remember what I was doing. I was doing a lecture in front of 90 drug and alcohol and in a inpatient drug and alcohol facility. I was in the middle of a lecture, which I hated. But and I can remember my coworker walking back across, and I could tell the look on his face. And he came up and whispered on my ear, and we told all the patients at that time. But it's amazing, like those details. You remembered those details.
Absolutely.
And a lot of us weren't connected, to anyone specifically there in New York, but that trauma records differently. And so I tell people about that to then say, like, okay, so why do you think that something like this had happened to us when we were 16 years old, or this happened to you when you were in combat? Why do you think you're just going to get over it? I still remember I can play out what I did on 9/11.
Yeah.
And that affected us as a country, but it didn't affect me necessarily as I wasn't there. I didn't know anybody there, but it impacted us. And so, we need to understand that we are affected by those things and how we take that and harness it to do better, to live life and to carry those memories and carry that with us. It's not always going to be easy. No. There's going to be days, and that's where trauma is so different is you couldn't prepare for that young man in Roane County to die and how that was going to upset your world.
Right.
I tell my veterans all the time that same thing. A lot of my Vietnam veterans were triggered by Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right.
They would. Right. Yeah. They had nicely put away Vietnam until here they are. Turning on the TV and there's all this live footage from Iraq and Afghanistan, and now Vietnam is alive again in their heads.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I don't understand that incident, but
you understand
totally.
And you can't prepare for what's going to trigger, and open, unlock that Pandora's box of memories.
Unreal. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Talking about military life, and this is kind of where I lost connection with the Chuck thing. After high school, right, I went to the military, and I was telling Greg, my buddy, that I almost feel like I have lived 3 lives. And I'll tell you why. Prior to the military was life number 1. Military, 4 years of my life, was life number 2. Post-military is life number 3. And it feels like that completely. And I don't have a connection that's connecting it all together yet. And it's weird that I feel that way. But it's like when I get in military mode, it's like I get back into life number 2.
Yeah.
And everything I remember and know and friends from life number 2, I'll come back. And then when I need to talk about pre-military, I got to jump into life number 1. And it's crazy that I think like that. I don't even know why I do, but that's how it feels to me. And, post high school, I've had a couple head injuries, like I've had a couple concussions, which, not big ones, but enough, I think, that's caused me some confusion in life. It feels like, post high school is almost, or pre-military stuff in the high school is almost a blur to me in a lot of ways, unless it's some little thing that pops up. And that's like a vivid memory. I'm like, man, that makes no sense. But I don't remember any of this stuff. Just like Chuck's incident that night. Yeah. There were so many details that are like, I woke up in the middle of the night because of them many a times. But there's also some that are so ridiculous that I remember.
Yeah.
And there's some that are so important that I even don't remember at all. Yeah. And me and Greg were talking before the last show about a lot of the things that happened that night. And it's like, we're not even sure because it's so foggy, but so important. It's like, it's and like you said, it's funny how the brain registers trauma and how it distributes it when you need to bring it up or not bring it up. It just all of a sudden comes rolling out on the table. But it also protects you. Yes, it does.
Because if we remembered every single detail.
That's true. That's a good point.
Could we handle it?
No way.
No. And so I think there's a level that our brain has this built-in defense mechanism to protect us, from our own minds. And I've seen that happen with a lot of my combat vets that literally, as we're processing trauma, they'll remember other trauma. They're like, and it's like I've had so many veterans use the analogy, like, I feel like they're tearing down this wall. And as I take this piece of the wall down, it uncovers other things that I totally forgot about.
Oh, man.
And we've talked about that of just, I think, our brain is an amazing thing and it's also there to protect us. And, from trying to deal with too much at once.
That's a good point.
Because it's just too much.
I never thought of that. And see, that's why you went to school for this. You know all the details.
Well, and I don't even know how much. Honest to goodness, I tell people all the time, in my master's program, because all my master's program was pre 9/11.
Yeah.
There was minimal to no talk about PTSD.
Gotcha.
There was like a piece of one class, maybe an hour, that we talked about trauma and dealing with trauma. Because it was one of those things that still wasn't even discussed. PTSD didn't even become a diagnosis till 1980. But really, it wasn't something that was a main focal point in, our world, at least that I saw until 9/11 happened. And it opened up a conversation because it wasn't just, people that had been, raped or, like some type of major violence. This was talking about an entire city that had been exposed to trauma in New York City, in Washington, D.C., at the Pentagon, and even in Shanksville, these communities were dealing with this trauma and they were seeing PTSD like they'd never seen PTSD before. Wow. So it changed the whole conversation of it. And so I didn't get a lot of book knowledge of PTSD.
On the job knowledge.
It was on the job training and just starting to work with veterans and, at the time, servicemen and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and just starting my job in Germany. I didn't do counseling, but it was just we were doing surface stuff and just helping families. And, but I started seeing it. And then as soon as we moved back here in 2006 is when I started working, at the Vet Center program. And so that's all we do. That's, I'm a trauma therapist. That's, every day I'm listening to trauma stories.
Wow.
And at times, I think that leads to some of the introvert stuff too, because I take in all this stuff every day. Yeah. I need quiet time to recharge for myself.
I bet.
But it's a balancing act. I always tell people I have to practice what I preach. I got to take care of myself. Like I'm telling people to take care of themselves. But, and it's just, it's about doing better every day. Yeah. Some days I win, some days I don't.
Absolutely.
But
you're doing great work. And I've heard of the veterans that have come through the program. Well, not really a program, but have come to your office. And, you're doing good work. And we need that in the community.
And I am passionate about it because, I just feel like I understand, even though I never wore the uniform, having gone through what we did with Chuck and then, 9/11, and it's really felt like it set me up to really, be able to do some good in the world.
Right.
So
to make a difference.
Yeah.
To listen.
Yes.
We need a lot more listeners in the world. Yeah. And, that's a valuable tool.
Yeah.
You can just sit down and listen to somebody, look at them in the eye and just listen to them. How much better do you feel when you talk to somebody and they listen to you, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all feel better. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, wow, we have a connection with that person. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome. And like today, we're sitting here talking about some of the crap we went through, and I'm already feeling better. And
good.
It's the
I'll
whole
bill
purpose
you.
Wait a minute, I'll tell a high school story on you.
No. You've got too much dirt on me.
Probably vice versa.
That's what I was going to say. I've got some stories I could share about you too.
Oh my gosh. Okay, next question.
Next question.
All right, here's the one I like to ask all my guests.
Okay.
And it's pretty self-explanatory, really. But what is your biggest accomplishment thus far in your life?
Oh, easy, my boys.
Oh man, that's what everybody says.
Yeah, my kids. Through school and then after Chuck, I didn't want kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I was adamant. I mean, Dan and I had been married for over 10 years before we had, our first child. And I mean, I didn't want to have kids.
Really?
Yeah. I was scared to death, Steve. I mean, I was truly scared. I mean, it just that anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't live through losing a child.
No.
I couldn't.
I know.
And, so luckily I have an amazing husband and who is very supportive and allows me to talk about Chuck and allows Chuck to continue to be a part of my heart, and because Chuck always will be a part of my heart. So it's, he doesn't ever feel like it's a competition or anything like that. So sometimes people are like, you can't live up to the memory of this person.
Right.
And it's not like that. It's just, but he absolutely supports me, and, he hugely helped me when I did the memorial and everything. And I'm just so grateful for him. But, I didn't want kids. I didn't,
Wow.
And it was just out of my own fear.
Yeah.
Not that I love kids. I love being around other people's kids. I've always been great with kids, but I was terrified.
Yes.
I was so terrified. I mean, watching Dick and Nancy Schofield, Chuck's parents, and I got very close with them after Chuck died. And I always looked at them. I'm like, how do you keep putting one foot in front of the other? Like, I don't even know. But they did. And so it was one of those, talk about facing your fears, and, but I can't imagine my life without my boys now.
Yeah.
I have Drew and Luke, 8 and 6, and they are, they're my life, they're my world, and they're so much fun. And I'm glad my entire world is completely upended in as far as now being their social director and getting them to sports and just all of their activities. And my oldest, I don't know who he belongs to because he's the most social kid I've ever met in my entire life. He's so just, he wants to be around people. And I'm like, you have a complete introvert as a parent, like, no, let's not just stay. No. And he's like, let's go. Let's find stuff to do. And I'm like, it's good though, because he pushes me out of my box.
Yeah.
And, for an 8-year-old, that's a pretty awesome thing.
Absolutely. Just about, actually every one of my guests has an answer very similar to that.
Really?
And that's good to hear, because I love family, and I'm the same way. My kid, that's what it is. That's my biggest accomplishment in life. And it's awesome. I mean,
and I grew up on acreage, and that was one of the big things when Dan and I started talking about, even briefly discussing, like, maybe we'll have kids. And I'm like, we need land. Because I grew up on acreage and I grew up on a farm, and I'm like, I want my kids to have that. I want them to, build forts in the woods and, play and, just run around and be kids and not having to worry. We've lived all over the world, and, and just some of those fears and, not seeing, people can't, you can't go too far because, I might get kidnapped and things like this. I'm like, I want a safe place for my kids that they can run and play. And I'm glad you didn't try to buy your old family farm, because
we thought about it.
I know you did. But, it's become such a home for me. And I just, I wouldn't want to raise my boys anywhere else.
That's a great place to do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I was raised, honestly. I mean, I grew up at my grandma's all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was raised there pretty much.
I know you said you kind of there, like, you have to bring Shelby sometime.
She's been there plenty of times.
Okay.
But me and my sister were raised there ever since we were little kids.
That's
so
awesome.
we spent a ton of time on that farm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's
it's
funny
full
how
circle stuff.
that's so weird,
So, where do you see yourself in the next 20 years? I mean, what's the next chapter in your life look like? I mean,
retired. Yeah, because so I've been with the government now, like, is this 14 or 15 years?
Wow.
So I'm about halfway, so I've got like 15 more to go. and I'll be able to retire. So 20 years is exciting.
Yes.
As far as where I want to be. I want to travel. Like having the opportunity with Dan being in the military and living in Germany for 3 years was, I don't know if I would have ever traveled like we do if I'd never left Ritchie County.
Right.
But having lived overseas for 3 years, I'm like, this is way easier than people imagine. So I have a goal. I want to have a travel photography business.
No way.
Yeah. So that's my 20-year goal. So when I retire, I want to travel but I want to take people that are afraid to go overseas, and I want to take them, and then I want to take pictures of them, like be their personal photographer.
That's cool.
So I want to take them around and travel. Like, so I have this big dream of like, this is going to be my
Hey, does Dan know this?
Yes, because in reality, it's all, in the purpose of me, because they're going to pay for my trip to Europe.
Ooh.
See? You like it, don't you? Because people are afraid to travel.
You were always smarter than me.
But I mean, so many people are afraid to travel and to go overseas. So if I plan everything and I go with you, it's not going to be so scary. I'm going to take care of everything. And,
you need an agent.
I do. Would you like to be my agent?
Let's do this.
Hey, well, I was working on trying to be your agent earlier in the week.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We could work something out here.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so that's, in 20 years, I plan on being retired. And honestly, as much as I have said that since we left Germany, like, this is going to be my retirement gig. I want to travel,
That's cool.
But will it happen? It probably depends on what my kids are doing.
Definitely.
If they're,
in 20 years, they'll be in, young 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And
Drew says he's either going to fly Army helicopters or play Major League Baseball. So
probably neither.
Probably neither. I don't know. Army helicopter.
You know what I mean?
My heart goes like, oh, please, no, Army helicopters.
Ask me what I was going to do when I was that age. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Your plans change so much, but it'll honestly probably be something with what what they're doing. But travel will be a big part of it. Like Dan and I are both on the same page. We enjoy travel. We love going places. And, it's kind of embarrassing to say that I've traveled more in Europe than I have in my own country.
Yeah.
So I look forward to doing a lot more travel with my kids and with him in the next 20 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very motivating. Yeah. I'm the same way. I want to hit retirement and just enjoy life. And, be there for my daughter, whatever she's doing, whatever she needs.
Right.
I don't know how much traveling I'm going to be doing. Some, obviously, but definitely in the country. I don't foresee myself going overseas anymore. I don't know.
Why? There's such a big world out there of things to see.
I like the trips I've been on and the countries I've seen, but I'm just not into the big travel things.
Goes back to that introvert.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I'll go to Florida in a heartbeat. I'll go to Cali in a heartbeat.
Yeah. But. So Dan and I and you and Jen, we're going to take a trip to Europe. And
I would love to go to Europe. I've never been there. Yeah, I'd love to go over there and sightsee and do all that stuff, with the World War II, World War I stuff. I mean, that's very interesting.
I've been at the beaches in Normandy.
Nice.
I've stood in the trenches of Battle of the Bulge in Belgium. We have had some really neat opportunities to travel. Like there's just been an eagle's nest, like all that World War II stuff. Like, we just ate it up, while we were over there.
Wow. That's awesome stuff. Yeah. I mean, I love history, and
me too.
We're military-based people, so that stuff means a lot to me.
Me too.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lori, this has been a killer episode, and I can't thank you enough for coming on. And
no problem. Thank you for having me. It wasn't nearly as painful as I thought it was going to be.
I told you it wouldn't be, huh?
Just talking to a friend.
That's right. And hey, we talked about a lot of good stuff, and I really appreciate it. And I hope this is a catalyst for a lot of people we know.
Me too.
The community. If anybody listens, I might not get anybody to listen to this stuff, but if anything happens, at least we're talking about it.
Exactly.
You and I know Greg and I talked about it on the last show. Like I said, this stuff might end in 2 weeks, or I might continue to do this the rest of my life, but I love doing it. And it's just so emotional and it feels so good.
It's therapeutic.
It is. But yeah, I want to thank you again for coming on, and it's been awesome.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Hey, if you like what you heard, subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Don't tell anybody. I don't care. But yeah, this has been the Life Hacks Podcast. It's all about life, folks. Be better. Be better tomorrow than you were today. Talk to somebody. Open a door for a stranger. Just be better. Be better. Until next time, folks, be a good human. Later.